Alright, let's talk about Realm Traveler. This game might look like a chill idle RPG at first, but once you get deeper, you quickly realize how much strategy actually matters. With more than 60 unique characters spread across different factions and classes like Warrior, Mage, Guard, and Priest, building the right team can seriously change how your fights play out. Picking random heroes might get you through early stages, but later on, one bad choice can be the difference between an easy win and a frustrating loss. That's exactly why I put together this complete Realm Traveler tier list. In this video, we'll go over the best characters in the game, which ones really shine in combat, and which ones might look good on paper but struggle in practice. I'll also break down the pros and cons of each top unit so you know who's worth investing your resources in and who you might want to skip. If you want to make smarter decisions and get the most out of your roster, you're in the right place, so let's get started. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking characters in Realm Traveler. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching.
My friends, only 0.1% of viewers subscribe. If you like this type of content, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you in advance for your support.
The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Alice, Dodo, Kiki, Titan, Vivian, Caliph, and Sura. Sometimes a unit is not bad. It is just the friend you stop inviting to ranked matches because you know exactly how it will end. That is pretty much the vibe of the D tier in Realm Traveler, and yeah, these characters try their best, but the meta simply does not care about their feelings. Let's start with Alice, the healer who sounds useful on paper, but somehow never saves the day. She can heal moderately and even remove debuffs, which is nice, in theory. The problem is that her healing numbers are low, and she brings absolutely no buffs to the team. When you put her next to Yuvi, Annie, or Eudora, Alice just kind of stands there like, I helped, right? Unfortunately, in Realm Traveler, being okay is not enough, and she gets completely overshadowed in every possible support role. Now Dodo is that tank who looks sturdy but never really changes the flow of a fight. He can share damage and survive decently, which makes him acceptable for player versus environment stalling. But outside of that niche, he offers almost nothing. No strong utility, no team-wide impact, and no real reason to pick him when you want to push content or win faster. He tanks, he survives, and that is pretty much it. Kiki in Titan form takes the defensive-only concept even further. She is actually good at protecting a single target, so if you want one ally to live forever, she can help with that. But once area of effect damage starts flying, she completely falls apart. She has almost no offensive pressure, no aggression, and zero threat presence. In a game where damage wins fights, Kiki just politely asks enemies to stop, and they absolutely do not. Let's talk about Vivian, because she is one of the most confusing designs in this tier. She can heal multiple allies at once and apply Bless, which increases healing received and provides immunity. She even has a revive. Sounds great, right? The problem is that her revive cooldown is painfully long, and her kit scales with dead allies, which is slow and awkward for the current meta. You basically need things to go wrong for her to shine, and that is not a situation you want to plan around. Caliph is a classic example of looks strong until you actually use him. He deals burst damage through curses and can even apply anti-revive, which sounds terrifying. On paper, he is solid. In reality, Mael does everything better in curse-based teams. Caliph also needs heavy investment before he feels useful, and by the time you reach that point, you could have built a much stronger carry instead. And finally Sura, the unit who tries to do a little bit of everything but never keeps up. He can inflict burst, gain lifesteal, and counterattacks, which sounds versatile. The issue is that his entire kit is single target focused, and Realm Traveler is deep into an area of effect burst meta. As the game progresses into late stages, Sura just cannot keep pace, and his damage and impact slowly fade into irrelevance. So yeah, these D tier units are not completely useless, but if you are serious about climbing or optimizing your teams, they are usually the first ones to stay on the bench, probably forever. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Akasha, Dracula, Jessica, Margaret, Oros, Severe, Stella, and Ying. Akasha is one of those characters who can look amazing for about 5 seconds and then completely fall apart. She deals solid area damage to the front and mid rows thanks to bleed, and her skills can critically hit if the target is already bleeding. On top of that, she heals herself when she gets a kill, which feels great when things go right. The problem is exactly that. She needs those kills. If Akasha cannot secure finishes, she stops being a carry and starts feeling like dead weight very quickly. Dracula is basically the definition of trust the dice. He can spread bleed to multiple enemies, which already gives him decent pressure, but every single skill also has a chance to inflict chaos, forcing enemies to randomly attack their own allies. When it works, it is hilarious and effective. When it does not, you are left staring at the screen wondering why nothing is happening. His entire kit depends heavily on randomness, which makes him unreliable in serious fights. Jessica is a classic glass cannon with a big ego and very little defense. She can boost her own critical rate and critical damage, apply anti-heal to enemies, and deal extra damage to slower targets. All of that sounds perfect for deleting enemies fast. The downside is that she needs constant protection and healing to survive even moderate pressure. If your team cannot babysit her, Jessica disappears faster than her damage numbers appear. Margaret brings an interesting mix of damage and utility, but at a painfully slow pace. She can deal area damage, apply a reflect buff called Abyss Embrace, and even dispel buffs from enemies. On paper, that is a strong support package. In practice, her impact takes too long to show, and fights often end before she truly shines. She works, but she always feels one step behind the action. Oros is all about hunting the biggest threat on the enemy team. He consistently targets the highest attack enemy, bursts them down, reduces their attack power, and removes buffs from multiple enemies. The utility is great, but his damage numbers are wildly inconsistent. Sometimes he deletes targets, sometimes he barely scratches them. You never quite know which version of Oros you are getting in a fight. Severe is a very matchup dependent character who feels amazing in the right situation and mediocre everywhere else. She deals area damage to the front row and applies heal reduction, which is already useful. On top of that, she can freeze priests and apply anti-revive to multiple targets. The issue is that outside of priest-heavy teams, her value drops sharply, making her far too niche for general use. Stella is a solid all-round support who does a bit of everything without excelling at anything. She deals decent area damage, boosts allied attack and speed, shares damage between two allies, and provides some healing. Early and mid-game, she feels great. Late game, however, her scaling just does not keep up, and her numbers start to feel underwhelming compared to higher tier supports. Ying is all about control and synergy. She can apply debuffs like slow and attack reduction, and she works especially well in freeze-based setups. When paired with proper crowd control compositions, she feels useful and annoying for the enemy. Without that kind of setup though, her impact drops hard. Ying is not bad, but she absolutely needs the right team to justify her slot in Realm Traveler. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Chandra, Ilya, Evie, Fisna, Max, Milia, Mitabi, Shatia, and Zero. Chandra feels like a strong start that never quite makes it to the finish line. Early on, her area magic damage is respectable, and the fact that her skills have a 50% chance to apply debuffs makes her feel impactful. She can increase the magic damage enemies take and apply slow, which is great for setting up teams. The issue is that her damage simply does not scale well, so once you move past the early game, she starts to fall behind much faster than you would expect. Ilya is one of those supports you really want to love because her utility is genuinely good. She consistently removes debuffs, buffs an ally with a 25% attack increase, and can even revive a fallen teammate. The problem is that she herself is incredibly fragile. With very low health and poor sustainability, Ilya often becomes the first target and the first to fall, which makes keeping her alive a constant struggle. Evie is all about self-sufficiency and nothing else. She can cleanse her own debuffs, become immune to crowd control for 2 rounds, and buff her own critical rate and accuracy. That makes her annoying to deal with and fairly reliable in duels. Unfortunately, she offers 0 team support and no area damage, so while she can survive and perform on her own, she does not really elevate the rest of your lineup. Fisna can hit hard, but only if everything lines up properly. She deals area damage and applies Trampled, which reduces physical immunity by 20%, and her skills ignore part of enemy defense and damage sharing. That sounds great, but her damage heavily relies on stacking debuffs. Without proper setup, her damage feels underwhelming, and she ends up needing more effort than most players are willing to invest. Max is a damage over time specialist who shines in the right composition. He can hit up to 4 enemies with area damage, apply bleed, and even petrify enemies that are already debuffed. In dedicated damage over time teams, this can be very strong. Outside of those setups, however, Max feels awkward and inconsistent, making him a poor standalone choice. Milia is a flexible support who adapts to what your team needs in the moment. She can heal all allies, provide a 30% attack buff, and either revive a fallen ally or heal the lowest health unit depending on the situation. The downside is her revive cooldown, which is extremely long. When it is unavailable, her impact drops noticeably, and timing becomes everything. Mitabi is more about control than raw damage. He can deal area magic damage to up to 4 enemies and has excellent synergy with slow and freeze effects. While his crowd control application is solid, his damage output is lacking. You bring Mitabi to disrupt the enemy team, not to carry fights, which limits his overall value. Shatia is surprisingly durable for an offensive unit, at least on paper. She deals area damage and bleed to the front row, can heal herself, and even revives upon death with a 30% immunity boost. The catch is anti-revive mechanics. Against teams that shut down revives, Shatia loses one of her biggest strengths and becomes much easier to deal with. Zero rounds out the B tier as a fast-paced warrior with decent utility. He deals area damage to the front 2 rows, applies Ignite that deals damage over time based on his attack, and boosts speed for himself or the team. The problem is his stats. Compared to other warriors, his numbers are simply lower, which keeps him from truly standing out despite a useful kit. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Ana Annie, Eudora, Ayeta, Xiao, Nosa, Oraham, Yui, and Tilumix. Ana Annie is the kind of support that makes your entire team feel unfair. She can heal the whole team every 2 turns, and that heal also buffs 4 allies with a 20% increase to both attack and critical stats. On top of that, she provides damage sharing for allies for 2 rounds and grants 20% magic damage immunity. She is not just keeping your team alive, she is actively making everyone stronger at the same time. Eudora is one of the strongest hybrid supports in Realm Traveler, and it really shows in practice. She can shield the 3 allies with the lowest health, which already gives massive survivability. At the same time, she consistently deals area damage while either applying 2 random debuffs to enemies or healing all allies and boosting their attack by 25%. She brings damage, sustain, and buffs in one package, which is why she is considered top tier. Ayeta shines as a curse-based damage dealer who pressures the entire enemy team at once. She deals solid area damage to all enemies, and her skills have a 55% chance to inflict curse. What makes her dangerous is that her skill hits can also detonate existing curse debuffs, dealing extra damage on top. In the right setup, Ayeta turns curse into a ticking time bomb. Xiao is an absolute monster when it comes to damage output. She deals area damage to the front row with guaranteed curse application, which already sets up follow-up damage. On top of that, she is one of the best single target burst damage dealers in the game, with high and consistent damage over time. She fits perfectly in the front row and dominates fights when left unchecked. Nosa specializes in finishing off enemies who are already on the brink of death. Her skills ignore 30% of enemy defense and always target the lowest health enemy, which makes her extremely lethal. To make things even worse for her targets, she applies a massive healing reduction of 75% for 3 turns. Once Nosa locks onto someone, it is usually over. Oraham blends sustain and execution in a very satisfying way. He can deal area damage to the front and mid rows, and his skills have a 75% chance to inflict curse. On top of that, he consistently bursts the lowest health enemy and heals himself for 20% of the damage he deals. This lifesteal makes him surprisingly durable while still hitting hard. Yui is widely considered one of the best supports in the entire game, and for good reason. She provides strong area healing, applies a 40% defense shred to enemies, and buffs allies with increased attack, critical rate, and critical damage. Almost any team becomes better just by adding Yui, which is exactly what a top tier support should do. Talamex is a tanky debuffer who fits perfectly into demon-based compositions. He deals area damage to all enemies with a 58% chance to apply curse, and he passively gains 20% crowd control immunity. Talamex does not just soak damage, he actively weakens the enemy team while staying annoyingly hard to control. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Asura, Avalon, Brand, Raphael, Catherine, and Mael. Asura is the definition of a finisher, and honestly, she feels ruthless. Her skills always target the enemy with the lowest health, and if that target is below 40% health, she deals an extra 25% damage. If she gets the kill, she absorbs 25% of the target's maximum health, which lets her snowball fights incredibly hard. On top of all that, she has a high chance to inflict silence, making sure her victims do not even get a last word in. Avalon turns the battlefield into a burning nightmare. Her skills consistently apply area burn, and she inflicts divine fire that spreads to all enemies, turning single hits into team-wide pressure. Enemies who are already burning also face a 45% chance to get stunned, which adds brutal control on top of damage. If you are running a burn-focused team, Avalon feels less like a unit and more like the engine that makes everything work. Brand exists to punish supports, especially priests. His skills prioritize targeting priest enemies, and all of his abilities deal 25% extra damage to them. He can burst down the front row and has a massive 60% chance to petrify, which can completely shut down key units. In matches where supports decide the outcome, Brand is absolutely terrifying. Raphael is a monster in area burst compositions. He can apply Divine Fire with his area skills, and his kit has a built-in safety net where his next turn is guaranteed to critically hit if he did not land any critical hits before. This makes his damage extremely consistent. Combined with strong burn application and scaling in area damage teams, Raphael dishes out high damage turn after turn without falling off. Catherine is pure, unapologetic burst damage. She can hit the front two rows with area attacks, buff her own attack and critical damage, and has a 70% chance to reduce enemy critical chance by 25%. That mix of offense and disruption makes her one of the best burst-focused damage dealers in Realm Traveler. If you need enemies gone fast, Catherine gets the job done. Mael is the Curse King and no one else comes close. He deals strong area damage, applies Curse to the front row with a massive 90% chance, and steals 20% attack from the highest damage enemy. As if that was not enough, he also has a chance to confuse enemies and force them to attack their own allies. Mael does damage, controls the fight, and weakens the enemy at the same time, which is exactly why he sits comfortably in S tier. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.